Добрый вечер, дамы и господа. Hello everyone. Today we have Olga Show in English first hour. So we start broadcasting on Ustream as we speak, and you can find us on Olga Show. Search Olga Show, and we have wonderful guests today, Peter Howley. Hello, Peter. How are you today? Please come to the screen now because you are on Ustream. In fact, we have few cameras, so come closer. So I wouldn't. People already saw me many times, but you are a rare occasion at our show, and closer mic for you.
I'm very pleased to be invited back a second time, and looking forward to our time to talk a little bit about some of the interesting topics that I think your audience will like.
Yes, we have such a smart audience here in Silicon Valley and everywhere, so you are the perfect fit for our show tonight. And
I hope that's true because I live in Petaluma, and it was the son of a gun to get here today. It took me almost 2.5 hours, but it's worth it. It's fun.
See, people already calling, but they call and add the wrong number. They have to call to a studio. That's remind me to tell that we have a phone number 408-912-5265, 408-912-5265. Even so, it's a Russian programming. Today we have Peter Howley, who will be speaking some Russian, right?
Нет.
Oh, come on, we have to learn some Russian words today. Maybe привет means hello.
Привет.
Yes, привет. See, very good. All right, so we will have all kinds of interesting things. I know you brought a wonderful book today, The Secret to Winning Big. Please tell us. That's a new book. Last time it was Trendsetters.
Yeah, and I just want to say at the beginning that I really look forward to writing a chapter in this book as I did in the earlier book, but I have no financial interest in the books. The publishers get, if we sell 1 billion copies, the publishers
they
get
getting
it.
rich.
Yeah, but what was exciting for me was just to get. I've been working on a book, a full book, and it's called The Good CEO. So it's exciting to get something to do where I initially get a book done. The earlier book that you saw when I was here before has the very modest title, and again, the publishers picked the title. It's called Trendsetters. The world's leading experts reveal top trends to help you achieve health, wealth, and success. And I actually won a couple awards. When Amazon listed that book at the end of 2011, it got 2 awards from Amazon for bestsellers. One was for entrepreneurship, which is the space I come out of, and one was for marketing. And then this book came out on Amazon November 29th of this, 4 months ago, and it also actually had 5 categories, including the 2 that I just mentioned. The book is called, as you pointed out, The Secret to Winning Big. There's
Let me show that to the screen. Here it is. For people who are watching us on Ustream right now, they can see The Secret to Winning Big, and also we will see this on YouTube, available in probably by tomorrow.
Yeah, I think my chapter is called "Success is No Accident," and that's a good topic that I think your audience would be interested in. Whether you are, winning big is important. Whether you want to be, Steve Jobs or Bill McGowan, who formed MCI and changed the whole telecom world, with introducing competition, or whether you just want to be the best hairdresser in Washington, D.C. One of my contacts is a fellow named Frank Savage, and he's written a book called The Savage Way, and he's also a world-class sailor. He's 72 now, according to his book. But his mother was a plain hairdresser, and she raised him to be a tiger. So success, luck can be an important part, but success is not an accident. There are factors you put into succeeding that increase your chances. And on the luck aspect, Thomas Jefferson, one of our founders, said, I believe in something close to this anyway. I believe in luck, but I find the harder I work, the more of it I get.
Yes, I read that too. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I heard that usually it takes like 10 years to become successful overnight, but people don't see you working hard these 10 years.
Yeah. The study that was done by, Stanford or Harvard or some prestigious school was 10,000 hours on a topic. And I heard on a radio show the other day that if you spend 15 minutes a day reading a topic, you will become an expert in, I forget if it was 5 years or 10 years, but yeah, what you get in life is largely dependent on what you put into it and what you do. And that's what the book in my chapter talks about, or what are the keys to to success, and what are some of the big mistakes people make.
So how about starting with positive, what we can do to become a success?
And I hope I didn't hear you say politics first, did you?
No, I didn't say. I avoid at all costs any politics because I'm between two big countries, so I don't want.
Right.
I love technology, I love people and culture, that's all. It keeps me busy.
Well, I'll answer your question in 1 second, but I have a paper in the book here which I'll leave with you, and that I put on my blog back in December, and the title was "Are Politics, Business, and Economics Important?" And I was just pointing out at the end, the focus was then on Greece, and it's a democracy. People get what they vote for. And so if you're in business and you don't speak up and you don't educate your politicians, or at least make your views known, then you have to suffer the results. But anyway, that's politics. On the book, the secret, let me tell you a little bit about my background first, but I've been involved purely by accident, so luck does help, that I ended up with AT&T, the monopoly, when I got out of school in the service.
It cost me $1,000 to call to Russia. I remember those times.
Oh, a local call within California could cost you 45 or 50 cents a minute.
Oh my God, yes.
Just to call to San Jose from San-Francisco. And Bill McGowan at MCI spent years at the FCC to get permission to compete. And then when he finally got permission to compete, the whole telephone world over time, including the government phone companies in most countries, opened up to competition. And today you get Skype, you make long distance calls to Russia free,
and even
video.
In person,
yeah,
yes.
exactly.
How wonderful is that? In fact, I do have Olga Show Skype, and that's how we communicate right now. We had to have permission from Skype and Microsoft, who purchased Skype, to make it available that now people from all over the world can call us.
Yeah.
Use Olga Show Skype, including during the show and after the show. Okay, at least they can send me a message and I can reply to it. So it's kind of wonderful.
Yeah, and if they want to ask questions while you have me as a part of the captive audience,
yes, that's what's happening too.
My background, I worked for AT&T, and I worked hard, and that's one of the points that is a key to being successful. And I didn't like working there because it was like a government body, not to throw rocks at the government, but people didn't work long hours and all that. But I did work hard. I wanted to learn, and I had some very good guidance from some of my bosses who gave me advice. And when I look back, I went, wow, I'm so glad they told me that, because I needed it. But you were willing to learn, because sometimes boss can tell you anything, and if some people ignore it, then you can bring the horse to the water, but you cannot make the horse to drink, right? Is that the expression? Yeah, and that piece of advice you just gave, Olga, is really, really important. Listening and being willing to learn is critical. I don't care if you're 70 years old or 7 years old or 27. I don't care if you're a genius. I work with some very, very bright people, many of them, in Silicon Valley, but some in other cities and other countries. And the ones who are most successful almost always are the ones who not only are smart and work very, very hard, but they also ask questions, take advice. They don't follow it blindly, but they're looking for advice from people. And I'll come back. And a little bit about how I got there. So ultimately I just had to leave AT&T, and I started looking around and I set my resume out. And MCI, at the beginning of MCI, after they got permission to compete, was looking for an operations manager to open up New York City. So I went from this giant monopoly with rules and rules and rules. And if you were an operator, there were rules for how you had to get permission to go to the restroom. I mean, it was really way overboard. To a brand new startup with no rules. And then I helped them open up Los Angeles, and then I became their director of policies and procedures. But those procedures and things had to make sense or nobody would follow them, because this was an entrepreneurial startup company. So I ended up by accident being in this very exciting field of telecom. And again, as you pointed out, rates, it easily could cost you 45, 55 cents to make, a call.
Yeah, very expensive.
Yeah, within the local state. I mean, if you called overseas, it was tremendously expensive. And there was only one company you could work with on that type of thing.
That's why I love engineers. I have to tell technology and science, because if not our engineers, it would not be possible. So that's why you see me a lot on tech conferences, because I want to know where technology goes, but also say thank you to each and every engineer who made it possible that I can call all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely true. Without the geniuses behind this, the brilliant people the developers, the engineers, the software programmers and all, none of this would take place. I have a running watch, well, I don't have it on, but running watch, would take something the size of a foot locker, and now you can do all kinds of things with a little running watch. I mean, it's amazing. So I ended up being in this entrepreneurial field that was tremendously exciting at the beginning of MCI, and that it was just pure luck. But I worked hard. In fact, when I was still at AT&T, I went to school at night, and I had to commute down into New York City and go to school at night and come home late and go back to work on time and all. And I got my master's degree.
I just wonder at that time, how many hours did you sleep, in average?
Well,
did you sleep at all?
Well, you get sleep, but you don't have much time for anything else, because you have to study too, and you also have work projects and things like that. So weekends are spent, and most nights, including when you're riding the subway and the train down to Wall Street where the school is, then you're studying. So a lot of the clients that I work with, not all, are high-tech, brilliant people. Most of them are younger people, but some, two of my past clients were in their 60s. And it's interesting because one of them, they're both very, very smart, and they're both very technically oriented to the businesses they were forming. Neither one of them was very good at listening. And just because you're in your 60s and you have a lot of wisdom doesn't mean you shouldn't be learning all the time. So it's frustrating with me if I'm working with somebody and they don't. The best example I ever had, I mentioned on your last radio show, of an entrepreneur, a tremendous entrepreneur, was Chandra Shekhar and B.B. Jagadish, who formed Exodus Communications. And I joined them. I joined them as an advisor and an investor in 1999, I think. And the company went public very quickly, and it was one of the fastest growing companies in the history of Wall Street. It was just phenomenally successful. Ultimately, they stepped down, and the company followed a different course. But Chandra truly wanted my advice. He didn't follow it blindly, but he wanted it. And he gave me permission within his company to talk to anybody, to spend time in the field, to call on customers, to really go out and look. So, but let's go back to the secret to winning big. The first thing is to sort of know, what do you want to accomplish? What is your goal in life? And I came up in a very critical family, in the sense that they didn't just tell us we were all perfect little children. And so I wanted to prove that I really was a smart guy and I could get ahead.
Perfect child, right?
Well, I wasn't so much worried about being a poster child, but in life, as I went into the business world, I wanted to, prove myself and prove to the world that I could do something. And when I was in high school, I was sitting with my father on the back porch. We lived in New Jersey then, and he said, Pete, someday you'll be president of your own company. And I was dumbfounded, because I was pretty shy and things like that in those days, and I played sports, but I wasn't a super athlete. But he said, and I kind of looked at him like, why? And he said, because you don't just follow the crowd. And I think, and so my goal became to become president of my own company, which ultimately I've succeeded in doing. So having, your parents can be very, very positive, even though they don't spoil you. In fact, if they spoil you, you may not work, but they can be very positive at setting goals and expectations. When I graduated from high school, my father and mother went to the graduation, but my dad made a comment, something along the lines of course you graduated. What do you think you went to high school for? And, that's a very pragmatic, honest look at why I went to high school. Of course I was expected to work hard and get decent grades, maybe not.
But a lot of people can go to the universities and high schools. Definitely most of them will end up in high schools, but doesn't mean they will succeed like you.
Well, yeah, and there's no guarantee that I would have succeeded, big time, but if you do work very, very hard, it does help. And one of the key things was I had a goal. One of my friends wrote a book way back then, and I don't remember the title, but the American Management Association also published a book about setting goals. And one of the things it said in setting goals was you should set a goal, for long term. And so I had it, become a president of my own company. But it also said you should say, okay, what are the benchmarks? So what's your goal for 1 year? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And so you set the goals, and then you have to say, okay, what do I have to do to increase my chances of getting that? And one was I got my master's degree in marketing, so I was adding skills. 2, I worked hard even in jobs I didn't like. I also turned down promotions with other companies that were at big salary increases that were not in the right direction. One of them was with a can company, American Can or Continental Can, one of those two. And I would have been a big shot in their telecommunications department. But where would I go? I would never go to the presidency of their company because I was not in the canning side of the business. I was in what would now be IT. So setting goals and then setting interim goals. One of the goals as a benchmark in those days was if you were making twice your age in salary. So if you're 25 and you're making $50,000, that was considered phenomenally successful. With inflation, you probably need a bigger number now, but still, they were
maybe like quadruple or more.
Yeah, it's something of that sort. And of course, we don't want to talk about inflation, but there's more inflation than the official statistics. But another factor thinking about your goals and working towards them, and taking some risk are very, very helpful. And also, you mentioned listening, but you also have to have some courage. I was back east in the beginning of my career, back with those two companies initially, and it was extremely unusual then for an up-and-coming type person to go to work for a startup company. And out here it's normal now, and it's normal now even back east or in Boston or in Russia or in almost anywhere in the world. But in those days it was not. People would say, why didn't he stay with that big company? Why is he going with this startup company? So you have to have courage and drive, keep working at it. But you also have to listen. Your point earlier, Olga, if a couple of the companies I started, 2 of them in fact, that I spent a little bit under a year on each of them, putting things together, hiring some people and studying it and all the rest. We just decided the business really didn't make sense once we got into detail. So you want to never give up unless it doesn't make sense. As long as it still makes sense and you're not just kidding yourself, then you want to keep driving. And I have many sayings, and I love other people's sayings, but one of them is never give up. And I've added to that since then, unless the idea is stupid.
But then at the time, even a few years ago, we didn't think that we will use computer, internet, or Skype.
Yeah, well, if the cell phone didn't exist then, and certainly mobile's ability to use the cell phone didn't exist around the world, not just the United States. And when they first came out with a cell phone, it was the size of a cinder block. It's a big size brick. It was quite.
Well, let's repeat our phone number to call directly to the studio. It's 408-912-5265. 408-912-5265. We're gonna get a pause and play some Russian music, and I will try to teach Peter Howley some Russian words before we come back on air. And who do we have right now to play?
Right now we have to play the. Прямо сейчас мы сыграем музыку.
Okay, maybe I will try that. Okay, so
Yeah.
let me try that because I got my person of guard receptor. Кончится лето. То есть это трибут Виктору Цой. Пожалуйста, для наших слушателей. It's playing, right? Okay.
It's not.
Not playing?
No, did you pop the? You have the USB in?
No.
So it's not playing.
No.
So, мы продолжаем live on air. У нас должна быть музыка через какое-то время. Мы настраиваем приборы, когда много здесь, так много приборов. И, значит, хорошо, что мы делаем йогу, потому что так много всего случается. So, anyway, I'm just saying that the music is coming up in a few seconds. And we have some phone calls as well.
1, 2, 3. You have a question for Olga?
And so if you call into Olga Show, it's 408-912-5265. 408-912-5265. We're also broadcasting live on Ustream, where you can find us.
Oh. Okay, so hold on. I'll patch
Okay,
you in,
and we have a phone call,
Alright.
and we're coming live. So, hello, you're live on air. Oh, hi, how are you? Very good, very busy. We're running the live air show. Thank you for calling us. Where are you calling from? San Jose, so you are our neighbor. Okay. Okay. Very good. Hello, как дела? So I probably want Arkady to call me back at 8 o'clock if he speaks Russian. We have a programming right now in English, which will be going on YouTube as English part. So Arkady, stay with me, but I want Alisa to announce or speak with me a little bit and tell me what do you want to say, because it looks like you don't speak Russian. I have this suspicion. Okay, do you have performers there, right? All right. So I probably, on your behalf and my behalf, will throw out there that we're looking at Russian performers, maybe, and dancers, singers, maybe poems, wherever they can perform and speak about. And we have a special guest, Peter Howley, who talking about success is not an accident.
3 minutes to break. 3 minutes to break.
And maybe you will wish or would like to learn about some success for this event, because I'm hoping that it would be successful, and I have this gut feeling that it would be a successful event. What do you think? Are you ready for that?
And you know, Olga, let me add that not only for your guest caller, but for any of your audience. If you'd like to ask me a question, do feel most free to call. We've got, the better part of half an hour left, and that would be, it always triggers some other thoughts that are helpful to the whole audience as well as to the individual asking the question.
Yes, and I know, Alyssa, you're working very hard for this event already. How long do you work on this event?
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Yes. Yes, total spent already.
I missed the date and location of this because it sounds like it'd be a lot of fun and educational too. It's hard to beat. Oh. Yep. And May 19th.
A minute. I can't turn it. Yeah. Just gotta pay attention to me, so.
Well, Alyssa, I would like Arkady to call me back after 8 o'clock. We have a commercial break I cannot miss. And thank you for a phone call. And we'll talk to Arkady later.
20 seconds.
No, because we have a commercial break. We have to leave right now. Thanks.
10 seconds, okay.
All right, so we will have commercial break. Olga Show Twitter, Olga Show Skype, and you can find us. Sorry.
Listening to you 92.3 FM.
I can't turn that around because it's the way it's set up. It's like,
No.
If you'd like to advertise on you 92.3
I can't turn the screen around. I have
give
to
us
stay
a
the
call
way it's set up. It's
today
like
at
that.
just a little bit.
408-440-0851.
Because like
That's 408-440-0851.
No, a little
Or
bit.
send us an email
Like
to
that, that's
you
it.
923fm
Otherwise
at
it's hard to
gmail.com. For more information, visit you923fm.com
Thank you, because that
today.
way. Музыку приготовь, пожалуйста. И я не знаю, ты печатаешь очень громко. А? А ты не печатаешь?
Да, ну, когда мы первую часть можем вместе, то сначала идут чисто новости науки, потом новости космоса, а дальше там частично сделано, частично нет, про мультики уже я напишу.
No, I'll give you a copy of the book.
Музыка, в принципе, готова.
Yeah, send me. Okay, yes. Because next week is good. Yeah. Because next week I have Intel Futurist coming. Yeah.
7 to 8, right?
Yeah,
Good question.
7
We'll try to get an
and
answer for you.
8. That's for interview.
My dinner's going to be 11 o'clock when I get back to
Oh, wow.
Petaluma.
At 7 a.m., I shower. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine.
So let me
At
check
6 a.m.,
real
I make
quick.
breakfast. At 7 a.m.,
Because I see a
shower.
lot of
I start
people
laundry at 8.
getting some
At 10,
information on
we go for
my
a walk.
Facebook.
Every
How
day,
long is this
I live
commercial?
We got another minute left. It's just, so it was a 3-minute break, so.
That's why AARP created a communication.
Okay, we have people who listening. I can see communications through Facebook. They like our event. They like our show. So a whole bunch of people already doing that stuff.
Great.
That's through Facebook. I think you're not friends with me on Facebook. You have to send it to me. We have to find it and
Okay,
take
yeah.
pictures and stuff, because that way it'll be better. Now you have to connect, if you have time, to connect my computer to this. Maybe before, because I have music to play from here, because if he doesn't play this, I can play. Maybe you don't have time for it. I don't know, because we don't have time. Музыку приготовь там где-нибудь, если что.
Музыка готова.
And you have to be seen. And now try to, because I don't know what's the, how loud is that? Like here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
All right, coming back. Hello everyone, we continue with Olga Show, an interview with Peter Howley. We also would like you to call.
And if you're looking at us on the video, I'm the one behind the microphone.
Yeah, you have to come to the camera. No, like this.
There we go.
Here you are. Now we can see it. Because I don't want you, I don't have big bag, luckily, but, or I don't know, maybe unluckily. So you have to be now on camera. See, we don't want to hide you because we'd love to see you again. Thank you for coming all the way from Petaluma, 2.5 hours through the traffic to come here, all the way to San Jose, capital of Silicon Valley. If you have any questions, call us at 408-912-5265, 408-912-5265. Also, you can tweet at Olga Show 1, Olga Show 1. Also, you can Skype through Olga Show Skype, and you can call us directly to the studio through Skype, Olga Show Skype, or at least text us, and we will see all of that information. And of course, Olga Show, I have a Facebook page, and also Olga Show Chervikova, if you have to do that. So I don't know if you will spell my last name. It's kind of difficult. That's why it's ended up like Olga Show. So I thought. So anyway, come back to Peter Howley.
Yeah. But Olga, maybe let me take a minute to give the audience my background, and then, with your permission, I'll summarize the chapter. But it's a broad summary of the secrets to success and to winning big. But my background, as I mentioned, I ended up just by chance in the telecommunications industry, right about the time it opened up and became one of the most exciting fields, ever. I mean, you think about mobility and mobile phones and all the things that have taken place. The core of it is both the internet and telecommunications and chips and things like that. I've been involved with about 5 companies that I've been a co-founder of. One company is called Centex Telemanagement, and I ran it for 9 years. We took it public. The original investors made 20 times their money in about less than 3 years, and the company was acquired for just about $250 million back when
Not
that
bad.
was, well, and that was when that was a huge, it's not quite Zuckerberg and his $3.2 billion, but it was a lot of money.
But then what's then, and the inflation was less.
Correct.
So never know.
and we raised very little capital, even though it was a service company. So much of my experience personally has been on technology service companies versus just purely the technology side. One of the most phenomenal companies I worked with, as I mentioned, was Exodus Communications. And as I had an office there, they were down here in Santa Clara. I spent 2 or 3 days a week there, and they really wanted my advice. They wanted me to talk to people. And one of the questions was, how do we grow sales faster? And I went out and studied their sales product and their sales force and talked to customers and their salespeople. And they had it. So what they needed to do was hire another 10 salespeople. They had 2 very good ones, and set high standards. If salespeople aren't working out, you've got to replace them, because you don't want people not carrying their load. And the other one part of the challenge was, how do you build a great service company? And building a service company involves every employee in the company, and every employee in the company needs to support sales too, so you're really growing quickly. So that was part of my background, and I've also been an investor and an advisor to a lot of early stage companies. A few were in very different fields, like importing some beautiful power yachts from Vigo, Spain, called Rodman. And they were phenomenal. I forgot about the euro exchange rate, and when it was below $1, it was a great business. When it got to $1.30, it was not. So I have had, when I'm giving advice, I have had a lot of experience. I've also had some companies that didn't work out, both some of my clients, particularly if they didn't listen to my advice, or they didn't work out to the full opportunity that they had. But two of the companies I was involved starting, American Air Power Communications and Advanced Communications Management were the titles. After about 10 or 11 months, the numbers and things just didn't support, spending 3 or 4 years. There were just too many obstacles that didn't make sense, and so we backed out. But, and one of my lessons there is that, failure is a great learning experience. And in fact, another thing is if you're dealing with potential investors, and I had to deal with them when we were public, and we had some people who were shorting the stock. They were trying to get the stock to go down. They would make money if it went down. Because the stock, we went public at $9, and the stock ultimately went to $44 a share. But so, and one of the things I learned there that I'll share was that there are, particularly with investors, there are no bad questions. They say, I don't think that's a good idea, this, blah, 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 blah. No, that's an opportunity to address that issue in a very positive way. So they're not negative questions. They're selling opportunities to your audience. And the other thing is, you particularly early on when you're making presentations, whether it's a public company or private, you're going to get hit with questions you can't answer very well. And so go back and do your homework afterwards and come up with a better, more concise answer. Don't just continue to use the same weak answer. And one more piece in the area of answering questions. If you have a sensitive subject, and in our case with Centex Telemanagement, there was a question from a regulatory viewpoint whether we were reselling long distance as part of our business or whether we were a management company, and we of course argued we were a management company. So if I was cross-examined during a hearing with the Public Utility Commission for 5 hours, and one of the questions was, in effect, are you a reseller? And if you give a 5-minute answer, you're going to raise far more worries and doubts than if you give a short answer and say no, blah 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 blah. You give an answer, and then you say, does that answer your question? So a lot of times, and having good information, knowing your subject, and giving good answers is very important. But don't get too long-winded, because you'll raise 10 more questions or 2 more concerns that they hadn't thought of.
Sounds like in the court.
Yeah.
You can be in the court and each and every word can turn against you, right? Is that what they say in police? Also, when the police stops you, you don't even say anything. Because then it's raised too many questions.
Well,
same in business.
Olga, are you inferring I speed?
I'm just learning about how to live in America, right?
I ran a company. It was a division of a public company in Kingman, Arizona, which is a small town about 100 miles from Las Vegas. I was there for almost 8 years, and the speed limit then was 55 miles an hour, and nobody drove 55 miles an hour. So I was always getting speeding tickets, and I went to traffic school to keep them off my record. And when I left Kingman, Arizona, after 7.5 years, the Highway Patrol, we had a little going away party, presented me with an honorary teaching certificate for the driver ed course. I've been so often. So driving, you learn from those lessons too. I tell you one more little aside that's like that. Years ago, I was driving back to Kingman from Phoenix. I was in Phoenix on business.
Did you get a ticket again?
I was flying along at about 95 miles an hour, and all of a sudden I realized there was a car following me, and I knew it was the police. I kept going, and he pulled me over, and he came up and he got my license, and he said, Pete Howley's my name. He said, Mr. Howley, he said, you were driving 95 miles an hour, and out here if a cow gets on the highway and you hit him, you're going to get killed. And I said, officer, if I hit a squirrel, I would have gotten killed. And that humor wasn't making fun of him, it was funny, and he laughed. He didn't give me a ticket, he gave me a warning kind of ticket. So,
He probably checked at your record, and you are still number 1 on the list of speeding tickets that you received. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think I've been gone and I've modified my habits quite a bit, so I was no longer in that kind of trouble. Shall we go back to the
humor really helps. I can tell that it's really.
Yeah, it depends too on the officer and things like that. We were out in the middle of the desert in Arizona, halfway between Kingman and Phoenix. It's a 180-mile separation, and he was probably going home at the end of his shift, and he did laugh.
So let's come back to secrets of success,
Yep.
or how to win.
Let me touch on two of the biggest mistakes that I find entrepreneurs and other business people. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You could have a great, hardware store in your town, and you want to increase business, or you want to compete against, Orchard Supply or Friedman's or some big chain. Or, as I mentioned, the example of Frank Savage's mother, La Sauvage was her beauty parlor, according to his book, in Washington, D.C. So I'll come back to two of the biggest errors that people make. But first, let me summarize sort of, what are the secrets to success, and then I'll touch on the two that people most frequently don't do. Again, it was establish your goal. Put your goal in writing, break it into milestones. What are you looking for long term? What are you looking for in 1 and 5 years? Aim high. Why not? If you never hit a target that's higher than what you aim at, so aim high. Let's say you aim to make $1 million a year, and let's say you only succeed in making $250,000 a year. That's still pretty good.
Yes.
So aim high, and then do be willing to be different. Do follow your own path. So that's the first part of establishing your goal. On courage, drive, and attitude, again, fortune favors the brave. You have to have some courage. You have to be positive, and as you bring on other people to work with you, treat them very fairly. You want them all to be owners. You don't want them to be employees. But you want to have a very positive attitude, not naive that of course will be huge successes, but very positive. We can do it, we can do it, we can do it. We are going to do it. Always, both on a personal level and a business level, be working towards your goal. And I'm working nonstop, and I enjoy it. But I'm reading things at night. I'm going to conferences. I'm doing webinars. I'm speaking on radio shows because it makes me think about, my goals and things like that. So you do want to be sort of obsessive if you truly want to aim high and be a big success.
So you never stop. And that's what I like about you. You never stop. And all successful people, they never stop.
Yeah.
They continue to do stuff, and they becoming successful. And I think sometimes because they never stop, they never give up, right?
Yeah.
Just like you said.
And it's, today we say you have to have a balanced life. That may be true, and that's fair if you want that. But my own experience, in my own case, and almost everybody I've worked with who's phenomenally successful, no, they're more obsessive. One day I came home, and I have one of my daughters lives in Australia, and I came home. She was in high school then at home at 8:30 at night, and she laughed. She had my humor, and she said, "What happened, Dad? Did you get fired?" And I thought, good Lord, I never got home before 9 or 10 o'clock usually, and I was out of the house by 6:30 or 7 at the latest. And I did work almost always in the office on Saturdays and Sundays. I occasionally got to their games and things like that, but it was not a balanced life. And the reason was I was afraid to try to have a balanced life because I knew to be successful I had to keep driving. So I think it's hard to have a balanced life. There's nothing wrong, but then be willing to understand that you compromise. You have a balanced life, but you may compromise other things. And I did spend time with my kids. Okay, the next piece was, we mentioned always learning. I was afraid of failing, and I'm still afraid of failing, even though I've been a big success and I've been on the business magazines and written up in Business Week and the Wall Street Journal and things. But as Andy Grove at Intel said, he's written 2 great business books. One is about setting objectives and things, which I mentioned, and the other one is Only the Paranoid Survive. So when I was running Centex Telemanagement, that was doing phenomenally well, Inc. magazine had us as the fastest growing service company in America. Wow! I never had time to think, wow, aren't I a hotshot? I was running terrified that there were competition companies, and some of the big phone companies didn't like us because we, in effect, competed with them and things like that. So, never give up, but also keep driving. I mentioned earlier where you do have failures, either within a business or your business fails, stop and look and say, okay, what did I learn? What did I do that I would do differently? Hindsight's always 100%, but what can I do a little bit better next time? And what did I, take advantage of those learning experiences? And then I mentioned, look, but you do want to build a support system, and if you're married or have a significant other, they need to be supportive of you, or you don't have that kind of support. You need to build your associates. I never call them employees; they're associates, so that they're all on the same team. They all have the clear sense of the same goal. They have a motivation, and if it's purely money is that motivates some people, perhaps on Wall Street,
But not enough.
Yeah, you need to have a higher goal, and money can be a reward for doing it, but wanting to be the best in your field or the fastest growing or make the newspapers,
See, my godfather used to say, who is actually Russian but was born in China, he said, we come to this world naked and we leave this world naked. And what we leave behind, like reputation, history, how good we are, what we have done for others, actually, for our community and life. So, I mean, it's good to have money. I mean,
Yeah. I have a quote that goes exactly with your godfather's advice, which is very, very good advice. What do you want to be remembered for? Just having, oh, he made money. Yeah, big deal. That's exciting. My quote is, what do you want on your tombstone? And you just want he made money? Great. You can be one of trillions of people that just made money. But what if Bill McGowan, he changed the world, and he's a forgotten guy. Steve Jobs is much more visible, and he changed the world. Was he a delightfully pleasant guy to work with? No, I think he was pretty tough to work with and very obsessed. But he generated a huge focus, determination, and team spirit that got his goal. So what do you want on your tombstone? And I wanted something much more, one of my heroes in high school was Alexander the Great. Well, I might have a different one today, but here's this young guy who conquered the world in his day. I mean, wow, that's something he's remembered.
and we're still talking about him.
Yeah. How many people of all of us in this room or in the audience will be remembered 100 years after we pass away? Not very many. How about 10 years after you pass away? Well, probably your family. But to be remembered, much later, that's truly aiming high and winning big. But again, I don't expect to be remembered 100 years from now. But I have done some big wins, and it's
Yeah, you have books now. We can, and now you have shows and conferences. You're always speaker, so you're all over the internet. So I would say lots of years come by.
Yeah. And by the way, if you want to, I'm sorry.
Positive and stay famous.
Yeah. If you want to know a little bit more about me, or possibly a lot more about me, www.howleymanagement.com is our website. And I haven't looked at it. We just updated it yesterday, and I haven't had time to look at it yet. But I was involved with the changes. But you'll see a lot of my background there. And you'll also see there's some video on YouTube, interviews with me from other groups. I am going to be loading Olga's onto that shortly, as soon as we get it complete.
Talking about social media, being in media, coming from biotech to high tech and from high tech into media, believe me, I'm learning about social media just like as you. It's probably slower than I should be, but it's fun. Definitely make sky is the limit. Actually, space is the limit in this regards.
Yeah. Let me mention, Olga, the two items that I think are the most overlooked and underappreciated to being successful. And one of them we've touched on and off through this conversation, and it's the use of mentors or advisors. And they can be formal or informal. And usually when you think of mentors, you think of a big company and they appoint a mentor. Well, Pete Howley doesn't follow anybody like that. I'm very independent. I always have been. I even have a high school that threw me out for not following the rules. They had too many rules, and so I had to change high schools. But advisors. And I gave a talk at NYU a few years ago at their mentoring fair. And I thought, I was a keynote speaker, and what do I know about mentors? And I looked back at my career, and I had some great people, bosses sometimes associates. One of my college mates, he said, make your enemies by choice, not by chance. That's great advice. And somebody else, it might have been a common wisdom back then, was be careful how you deal with people going up the ladder of success, because you never know when you'll meet them coming back down.
Yes, that's
So, yeah.
one of my favorite. I also heard recently, try not to have enemies, have teachers. So even my enemy could be my teacher, because I'm learning something from them. And if I learn from it and overcome that problem, criticism, or whatever it may be, it's keep me going forward, because sometimes those not so friendly people actually tell you the right things.
Exactly, and that's true when you're raising money or with a business. You know, you get severe criticism, or they're not going to invest. Pay attention to what they say. They may be right, and you may have to address it, or maybe there's a real problem that's more important. A couple other examples on the mentors. Quite a few years ago, I was up in Redding, California for 6 months before I was given a general manager's job running a telephone division that was in trouble. And it turned out to be a phenomenal experience. And the parent public company, Citizens Utilities Company, increased their earnings every quarter for over 50 years. It's the longest public record in America. Increased earnings every quarter for over 50 years. And so I was up in Reading for 6 months working for the general manager of that group, and they were kind of checking me out before I got the big job equivalent to that job. And he called me into his office after I'd been there about 4 months, and he said, "Pete, I've got some advice for you." And I went, "Oh, okay." He said, because I was about to go back to headquarters for a month, and they had this super record, the guys that ran the company. He said, "Put your ego in your back pocket, and you'll learn a lot." Well, I'm from New Jersey and New York, and you know, brazen, aggressive, loud are the normal traits of us back there. And I thought about it, and put your ego in your back pocket and you'll learn a lot. So those kinds of advice are incredible. When I was in another job when I was working at AT&T, my boss's boss called me, and I was going to school at night. And I occasionally would get to work late, and you know, in the morning. But then I'd work at night until I had to take the subway down to my class. And he called me in to tell me I needed to be on time. And I purposely then was late more frequently than I had been before. How stupid can you be? Well, that's youth, and maybe that makes you a good entrepreneur. But you know, my boss protected me. He saw the good that I had, and he obviously protected me, or they would have, you know, I would not have worked out. So mentors can be invaluable. And then the other one sounds like old-fashioned advice, and I'm going to point out why it's not. And it's read books. And in the day of Twitter and texting and webinars and, you know, 140-character messages and all of that, reading books is, and it can be, you know, a Kindle book or an ebook of sorts, but if you want to really learn a topic, we talked about, you know, 10,000 hours of exposure to become a true expert. Books are an invaluable source of in-depth understanding of a topic. And you cannot get that by watching a video or, you know, or other quick techniques. And all too many really bright younger people, and some older too, don't understand that they can be helpful. And I'll give you a couple examples. I was negotiating with the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, when I was out in Arizona. And every 2 years the contract came due. And I went and got a couple books on negotiation, because the man I replaced in that job, who left, fortunately, loved to beat him up or see who was biggest and toughest in the union negotiation. And we had about 65 telephone operators back when you had a lot of operators. So I read the book, and I learned two things, a lot of things, but two things that jump out at me today. First, what were the factors I needed to get out of the new contract? Because I need to be able to run and manage the company properly. And two, what were the factors they needed to get? And one of them was the operators had to work split shifts. Come in for 3 hours, go home for 2 hours, come back for 4 hours. And they wanted 50 cents a day extra. It was pennies. And
Exactly.
so I read a book, and I learned that, what do they want? And I knew that was the hot item, and what do I want? And at the end of our normal 2-year contract, I not only had a great contract, I had a 3-year contract, because they liked working with me and things like that. So books can be invaluable.
Okay, so I would like to also find out what you can wish for our listeners and our viewers. I know we will be asking you to come in back, so or you write another book, or you bring all of your knowledgeable lessons again, because you always bring in interesting ideas and making us all very successful. By looking at you, it's make me never stop and never give up, and not to follow, but sometimes take a lead and just take all the hits, hard, easy ones, wherever it can be, because being ahead doesn't mean that you only can find gold mines. You will, but also you're going to probably have hard time.
Yeah, and a little bit of kind of advice that fits in with that. When you're first looking at it, if you're starting a new business, and I love disruptive, innovative kind of new companies, but it applies to almost any of them. You need to not kid yourself. You need facts. But once you start the company, the culture is very critical. And you've got to get people to be owners of the business. Make sure they have stock, and you treat them like owners. Demanding and high standards, yes, but you need them on the same team. And one of the biggest mistakes big companies make is, if you make a mistake, you're dead. Your career is dead. And so you hide the mistake, or you try to blame someone else. That's death for a company. You need people, if there's a mistake, to go, oh my God, look what happened. I made a bad decision. Bring it up. Think about how to solve it. If you need, pull the whole company team together to solve it. But problems are learning experiences. If somebody always has the wrong decision, they're the wrong person. But if you're making decisions quickly without a lot of information, it's impossible not to make mistakes. And so you fix it and then you go.
All right. So that's very good. Where the people can buy the book as well. I know you don't make any money out of it. The Secret to Winning Big.
It's called The Secret to Winning Big. There's quite a few authors of it. I'm one of them. You can buy it on Amazon for $19.95.
But they have a picture of you right in front of the book.
Well, that's only if you get copies from me.
Okay.
If you buy the book from Amazon or any bookstore, it's a little bit differently. You can also get the Kindle version or the ebook version for $9.95. You can also get a free copy of the chapter or a free copy of the book at the howleymanagement.com website. So if you go to howleymanagement.com website, you can get this book and the prior book, Trendsetters, if you would like it, and it's free.
All right, we come to commercial break right now.
Thank you for listening to.
I wasn't sure if you were running out of time. Or
No, yeah, it's like right on top there, so it's very good.
So what do you have, 2 minutes to close, or?
2:30, that's a commercial break right now. And so that would be up until 8 o'clock. If you have anything else to say, we can go for a few minutes, and then we will switch to Russian programming.
I'm happy wrapping up at your 8 o'clock, and then we pick the into the Russian, because a lot of your audience will speak English.
Right, and we probably will put it anyway in English, all of it. If somebody wants me to say whatever they want to say or send me information, then I would just do that.
What might be worth closing on would be saying,
just a second, or you go, or we, because we will do pictures and stuff. So who will go speaking right now, you or my mom?
I will.
Stop cleaning the office yourself and
So
replace
just
it
me.
with janitorial.
Yeah, my mom.
Calling in janitorial services.
Okay, so he will need mic and he will have a song right after the commercial. I can probably, what I will do, I will announce the phone numbers and everything again, like Olga Twitter and Olga Show and so forth.
Before?
Yeah.
Okay, just tell me when to start, and I'll announce the song.
And then you, песни, и начнешь читать, и я сделаю фотографию.
Ладно, начну читать на
Yes, so he will be, I will announce that he will be coming with the song there and stuff. I don't know where's the camera. Yes, I do. Телефон. Только телефон есть? Вот. So, well, we can use iPad, and also we can use your phone.
brought to you by
You're gonna talk first, and then play a song?
Yeah,
or-
I will talk first, announce the phone numbers and
Okay.
Twitter and Skype and everything else.
If you'd like to have your
Wow,
own
I have
show
more
in
on
your
Facebook.
Where's
language
my
on
camera?
U92.1
I'll just put-
FM, give us a call
Oh, then
today.
I'll go out and write something then I'll leave it
Yes,
for you.
because I will use permanent marker. I have to fill in. Because can I have that book for me?
Yeah.
All right, yes.
and
And I will read it out loud. And,
Okay, 20 seconds.
Visit u923fm.com today. You're listening to KSJ.